some characters are more than just roles. They're cultural touchstones. They live in our collective memory with such vividness that it's hard to separate the actor from the part they played. For an entire generation that grew up in the 80s, if you heard the name Eugene Tackleberry, a very specific image would pop into your head. A uniformed, trigger-happy, yet endearingly innocent cadet with an almost romantic passion for firearms. He was the heart and the firepower of the Police Academy franchise, a character so perfectly absurd and so hilariously intense that he became an icon. But what about the man who brought him to life? The actor who disappeared so completely into that role that for millions, he was Tackleberry. His name was David Graf, and his story is so much more than a punchline about a big gun. He was a classically trained actor, a devoted family man, and a gentle giant whose real personality couldn't have been more different from his on-screen persona. This is the story of a man who achieved a special kind of Hollywood immortality, but who also navigated the complex, often bittersweet reality of being forever linked to a single unforgettable character. It's a story about talent, typecasting, and the quiet dignity of a life well lived, far from the chaos of his most famous creation. To understand David Graf, you have to go back to the place that shaped him, Lancaster, Ohio. He was born on April 16, 1950, a true product of the American heartland. Post-war America was booming, and small towns like Lancaster were the backbone of the country. It was a world of close-knit communities, Friday night football games, and a shared set of traditional values. Life wasn't complicated. You worked hard, you were good to your neighbors, and you took pride in your roots. David grew up in this environment. He wasn't the son of actors or artists. His background was proudly working class. His father worked in a factory, and the family lived a modest, stable life. From a young age, David was known for two things: his towering height and his gentle nature. He shot up to well over 6 feet tall while still in his teens, a physical presence that would later define many of his on-screen roles. But his imposing frame housed a quiet, observant, and deeply sensitive soul. He attended Lancaster High School, and it was there, on the school stage, that he found his calling. Like so many kids who feel a little different, the theater was a place where he could belong, a place where his unique energy could be channeled. He fell in love with acting. It wasn't about seeking fame. It was about the craft itself, the magic of transformation, of stepping into another person's shoes. He threw himself into the school's drama program, discovering a passion that would set the course for the rest of his life. His drama teacher saw something special in him, a raw talent, yes, but also a serious-minded dedication that was unusual for a teenager. While others might have been dreaming of Hollywood, David was focused on learning the fundamentals. After graduating in 1968, he knew he needed to pursue a proper education in the arts. He wasn't going to just pack a bag and hope for the best. He enrolled at Otterbein College, a small liberal arts school in Westerville, Ohio, known for its excellent theater department. At Otterbein, he honed his skills, studying the classics, learning stagecraft, and performing in a wide range of productions, from Shakespeare to contemporary drama. He was a sponge, absorbing everything he could about the art of acting. He graduated in 1972 with a degree in theater, but he still felt his education wasn't complete. He was driven by a desire to be the best actor he could possibly be. This quest for mastery led him to graduate school at The Ohio State University. He spent the next few years immersed in an intensive Master of Fine Arts program, a rigorous environment that demanded discipline and intellectual depth. By the time he left Ohio State, he wasn't just a hopeful with a dream. He was a highly trained, versatile actor with a deep respect for the craft. Armed with his MFA, He did what all serious actors of his generation did. He moved to New York City to test his mettle on the biggest stage of them all. New York in the late 70s and early 80s was a gritty, vibrant, and incredibly competitive place for an actor. It was a city teetering on the edge of bankruptcy, a concrete jungle that was both dangerous and electrifying. For every success story headlining a Broadway show, there were thousands upon thousands of performers waiting tables in greasy spoons, driving yellow cabs through chaotic streets, and going to endless soul-crushing auditions in stuffy, fluorescent-lit rooms, all hoping for that one lucky break. This was the intense, unforgiving world David Graf, the young man with an MFA and a heart full of hope from Ohio, chose to enter. With his Midwestern politeness, his towering 6'3" frame, and a gentle demeanor that was the polar opposite of the city's tough-as-nails attitude, he probably stood out more than he fit in. Imagine this giant, friendly guy from Lancaster, Ohio, navigating a city that was famously impatient and cynical. He pounded the pavement, a well-worn map in his pocket, going from one casting call to the next. He faced the constant, stinging rejection that is the lifeblood of a young actor's journey. The hurried, "Thank you, next." The casting director, who doesn't even look up from their papers. It wasn't just about being told no. It was about the sheer exhaustion of it all. The feeling of being a nameless face in an endless sea of hopefuls. It was a brutal education in resilience, one that could either break a person or forge them into steel. He did what he had to do to survive just like everyone else. He took on a string of odd jobs, anything to pay the bills and keep the dream alive. The city demanded it. He slowly, through sheer persistence, began to land small roles in off-Broadway theater productions, honing his craft in front of tiny audiences in dusty black box theaters for little to no pay. It was about the work, not the glory. But his first taste of national television exposure came from a completely unexpected and wonderfully surreal place. In 1979, he appeared as a contestant on the hugely popular game show, The $20,000 Pyramid. It's a fascinating, rarely seen chapter of his life that offers a perfect window into his personality. In an era before reality TV, game shows were one of the few places the public could see real people under pressure, and David was a natural. Watching the old footage, you see the man behind the future characters. He's effortlessly charming. His mind is razor sharp, and he possesses an infectious, easygoing likability. The pressure is on, the studio lights are hot, the clock is ticking, but he's as cool as a cucumber. He was paired with the wonderful actress Patty Duke, and over the course of several episodes, he proved to be an exceptionally gifted player. He was fast, he was clever, and he had a natural rapport with the celebrity guests. He eventually won over $10,000, an absolute fortune, in 1979. For a struggling actor in New York, that was more than a windfall. It was a lifeline. It gave him the financial cushion and the confidence to stop worrying about next month's rent and focus entirely on his career. It was the break he needed, just not in the way he ever could have imagined. After his game show success, he made the calculated decision to make the move to Los Angeles in 1981. If New York was for the stage, Hollywood was the undisputed capital of television and film. It was the next logical step for an actor with his sights set on the screen. His career almost immediately began to pick up steam with a series of guest spots on the biggest television shows of the day. This was the golden age of episodic TV, and David's look was in demand. He was a classic character actor in the making. His impressive height and unique look made him a casting director's dream for specific types of roles: the imposing but well-meaning cop, the tough-talking soldier, or the gentle giant with a heart of gold. He landed a role on one of the most beloved shows of all time, MASH, playing a character named Lieutenant Spears in a 1982 episode. Being on that set during the show's final years was like stepping into television history. He also popped up as a bad guy on The Dukes of Hazzard and a formidable force on the A-Team, squaring off against Mr. T. These were small parts, often just a few scenes, but they were significant. In the world of early 80s television, these shows were watched by tens of millions of people every week. Getting on them meant you were officially in the game. He was steadily building a reputation in Hollywood as a reliable, talented, and thoroughly professional actor who always showed up prepared, hit his marks, and delivered. He was earning his stripes, one guest role at a time. Then in 1984, a script came across his agent's desk that was unlike anything else he'd read. It was for a low-budget ensemble comedy called Police Academy. On paper, the film was a massive gamble. It was a raunchy, R-rated comedy in the vein of Animal House and Porky's, with a cast of largely unknown actors. The whole project had an anarchic underdog energy. The role he was up for was Cadet Eugene Tackleberry, a character described simply as a gun-obsessed security guard turned police recruit. The part required a very specific kind of actor, someone who could play extreme, almost terrifying intensity with a completely straight face, someone who could be both intimidating and strangely lovable at the same time. It was a perfect, tailor-made fit for David's unique blend of imposing physicality and innate, gentle charm. He went into audition and absolutely blew the casting directors away. He didn't just read the lines, he inhabited the character's psyche from the very first moment. He instinctively understood the core joke. Tackleberry wasn't a dangerous psychopath. He was an overgrown kid with a singular, all-consuming passion. He was a puppy with a bazooka. David played the character with a wide-eyed, almost childlike enthusiasm for weaponry that was hilarious precisely because it was so utterly sincere. In a room full of actors likely playing the character as a loudmouth tough guy, David's nuanced, internally driven portrayal of earnest obsession was a stroke of comedic genius. He got the part, and in doing so, landed the one role that would change his life and define his career forever. Police Academy was a surprise, out-of-the-box smash hit. It was savage by most critics, who dismissed it as lowbrow and juvenile, but audiences didn't care. They turned out in droves, making it one of the highest-grossing films of 1984. Moviegoers absolutely fell in love with the ragtag cast of misfits, and David Graf's Tackleberry was a clear and immediate standout. His scenes were pure comedic gold, from his disastrously explosive date with his future love interest, the equally intense sergeant. Kathleen Kirkland, played by the brilliant Colleen Camp, to his gleeful deployment of increasingly larger and more inappropriate firearms for mundane tasks. Their shared passion for firepower was one of the sweetest and weirdest love stories of the 80s. His performance was so memorable and so beloved that he became an indispensable part of the franchise's DNA. There was no Police Academy without Tackleberry. He, along with Michael Winslow's Motormouth Jones and G.W. Bailey's cantankerous Captain Harris, became one of the foundational pillars of the series. He would go on to play the character in all 7 Police Academy films, a remarkable journey that spanned a full decade, from 1984 to 1994. The role didn't just give him a steady job, it made him a familiar and cherished face to millions of people all over the globe, a true icon of 80s comedy. While the world knew him as the comically intense Tackleberry, the real David Graf was a completely different person. The gun-crazed persona was just that, a persona. In reality, he was a devoted husband and a doting father. He met the love of his life, actress Katharine Graf, in the early 1980s. They married in 1985, just as his Police Academy fame was taking off, and they built a strong, loving family together with their two sons, Daniel and Sean. His family was the absolute center of his universe. He was a hands-on dad, deeply involved in his sons' lives. In a town where families are often strained by the pressures of the industry, David was a rock. He made a conscious effort to be present, to coach their sports teams, and to create a normal, stable home life. His sons remember him not as a movie star, but as a dad who was funny, supportive, and always there for them. This gentle family man nature often surprised people who only knew him from his work. Michael Winslow, his Police Academy co-star famous for his vocal sound effects, often spoke about David's off-screen personality. He described him as the sweetest guy, a warm and funny man who was a pleasure to be around on set. The entire cast of Police Academy was known for being a tight-knit group, and David was a beloved member of that family. They spent years working together, and the chemistry on screen was a reflection of a genuine camaraderie off-screen. One of the most surprising little-known facts about David Graf was his passion for music. He was an accomplished musician who played the saxophone. It was a side of himself that he kept largely private, a personal hobby that had nothing to do with his acting career. It speaks volumes about his character. He wasn't just the Tackleberry guy, he was a multi-talented artist with a rich inner life. The image of this towering, imposing man gently playing a soulful tune on the saxophone is a beautiful contradiction to his public image. There's a touching anecdote that reveals his deep commitment to his craft, even within the confines of a comedy franchise. For the role of Tackleberry, he did his homework. He actually spent time with police officers and firearms experts to understand their mindset and to handle the weapons on screen with a believable level of proficiency. He took the absurdity of the character seriously. He wanted Tackleberry's obsession to feel authentic, even if it was played for laughs. This professionalism and respect for the work, no matter the genre, was a hallmark of who he was as an actor. He never phoned it in. He gave every role, big or small, his absolute all. It was the Ohio work ethic, instilled in him from a young age, applied to the art of Hollywood filmmaking. If there was a controversy in David Graf's career, it wasn't one of scandal or personal turmoil. It was a quiet, professional struggle that many successful actors face. The double-edged sword of typecasting. The role of Eugene Tackleberry was a blessing. It gave him financial security, worldwide recognition, and a place in cinematic history. It allowed him to provide a wonderful life for his family, but it also put him in a box. His performance as Tackleberry was so iconic, so definitive, that it became nearly impossible for casting directors and even audiences to see him as anyone else. He was a victim of his own success. Despite his extensive classical training and his proven ability to handle drama, the offers that came in were almost always for characters in the same vein: goofy cops, bumbling tough guys, or comical authority figures. He worked constantly, appearing in numerous films and television shows after Police Academy, but he rarely got the chance to stretch his dramatic muscles in the way he was capable of. This is a common, often heartbreaking reality for character actors who create an unforgettable role. Think of J.K. Simmons, who for years was primarily known as the menacing white supremacist Vern Schillinger from the HBO series Oz, or as J. Jonah Jameson from the Spider-Man films, before his Oscar-winning turn in Whiplash finally broke the mold. David Graf never got his Whiplash moment. His historical significance lies in his mastery of a very specific type of comedic performance. He wasn't just a funny actor, he was a brilliant character actor who understood the power of commitment. He played Tackleberry's absurdities with an unwavering seriousness that made the character 10 times funnier. This commitment to the bit, this ability to ground an outrageous character in a believable emotional reality, is a rare gift. It's why, decades later, the character still resonates and makes people laugh. The Police Academy franchise itself, while often critically dismissed, had a massive cultural impact. It was a global phenomenon that spawned 7 films, a live-action series, and an animated cartoon. At the center of it all was the core cast, and David Graf was a vital pillar of that ensemble. His work helped define the tone and success of a franchise that brought joy and laughter to millions. His legacy today is one of warmth and laughter. When people remember David Graf, they smile. They remember the joy his performances brought them. In an industry that can be cynical and fleeting, creating a legacy of pure, uncomplicated happiness is a remarkable achievement. He proved that you don't need an Oscar or a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame to make a lasting impact. Sometimes all it takes is one perfect role, played with heart and comedic genius, to secure your place in people's hearts forever. Life, in its most brutal and unpredictable fashion, often writes the most heart-rending scripts. On April 7, 2001, while enveloped in the joyous celebration of his brother-in-law's wedding in Phoenix, Arizona, David Graf's life was abruptly extinguished by a massive heart attack. He was a mere 9 days from what should have been the celebration of his 51st birthday, a milestone that, in a chilling turn of fate, held a somber and prophetic significance within his own family's history. The setting for this tragedy was one of profound irony. A wedding, a sacrament of new beginnings and future hopes, became the backdrop for a devastating end. Surrounded by the warmth of family and the cheerful cadence of celebration, Graf collapsed, the suddenness of the event leaving no time for farewells, no space for last words. The shock was immediate and seismic, a wave of disbelief and horror that rippled through the wedding party and soon across the country. The news of his death was not just a report of a celebrity passing. It was the story of a husband, a father of 2 young sons, a cherished friend, and a respected colleague being stolen from life in a moment of unguarded happiness. This was not a lingering illness or a battle lost over time. It was a sudden, violent tearing of the fabric of many lives. The cause of death, a myocardial infarction, was a stark clinical term for a moment of profound and personal devastation. For those who knew him, the image of the robust 6'4" actor so full of life and energy being felled in an instant was almost impossible to reconcile. His wife, Catherine Graf, was thrust into the bewildering and nightmarish reality of widowhood in the blink of an eye. As she would later recount, the initial moments were a blur of confusion, a surreal out-of-body experience where the language of tragedy, so often rehearsed in scripts and on screen, became terrifyingly real. The shock wave of grief radiated from Phoenix, reaching the vibrant and often callous heart of Hollywood. David Graf was not a headline-grabbing superstar, but he was a quintessential working actor, a familiar face who had earned his place through consistent, quality work and a reputation for being a genuinely good man. His most iconic role, that of the gun-obsessed but ultimately good-hearted cadet Eugene Tackleberry in the wildly successful Police Academy film series, had cemented his place in the cultural lexicon of the 1980s. He appeared in all 7 installments of the franchise, a testament to his integral role in its comedic tapestry. But his career was far more varied, with roles in acclaimed films like 4 Friends and Suture, and guest appearances on a multitude of beloved television shows including MASH, The West Wing, Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, and Star Trek Voyager. He was a versatile character actor, the kind of performer who forms the reliable bedrock of the entertainment industry. Beyond his professional accomplishments, David Graf was remembered for his kindness and humility. Colleagues described him as one of the rare good guys in Hollywood, talented, generous, and easy to work with. Michael Winslow, his Police Academy co-star famous for his vocal sound effects, articulated the sentiments of many when he spoke of his friend's passing. There was a profound sense of loss, a shared grief among the cast that had become a sort of second family over the course of 7 films. Winslow's heartfelt tribute, imagining Graf and fellow departed co-star Bubba Smith policing heaven, was a poignant reflection of the bond they shared and the enduring good-natured image Graf left behind. David Graf's father, Dr. Paul Frederick Graf, also died of a heart attack in 1968 at roughly the same age. That family history made David's sudden passing feel even crueler to those who knew him, a sad echo, not a predestined pattern. For David, who had lived with this knowledge, to be struck down in the same manner and at the same age as his father was a heartbreaking fulfillment of a feared legacy. The burden of navigating this immense and sudden loss fell most heavily on his wife, Catherine, and their 2 sons, Daniel and Sean. Catherine Graf, an actress and writer herself, found herself in an unspeakable position, a widow and a single mother in an instant. Her journey through the maelstrom of grief would later become the subject of her powerful and unflinchingly honest one-woman play, Surviving David. The play, which garnered critical acclaim, was not a hagiography, but a raw, deeply personal exploration of the chaotic aftermath of sudden loss. In Surviving David, Catherine did not present a sanitized version of widowhood. She delved into the messy, confusing, and often contradictory emotions that accompany such a trauma. She spoke of the surreal moments in the hospital, of the clinical pronouncements that felt like lines from a television drama, and the bewildering task of telling her young sons that their father was never coming home. The play chronicled her struggle to do the widow thing right, while grappling with waves of anger, despair, and even unexpected moments of dark humor. She bravely explored the uncomfortable realities of grief, from navigating the pity of others to dealing with financial instability and the overwhelming loneliness that followed the departure of the man she described as her 6'4" Boy Scout. Reviews of the play highlighted its palpable, not palatable grief. Catherine recounted how, in the immediate aftermath, she was hurled into an altered reality, forced to take inventory of a new identity she never asked for. Her story was a testament to the disorienting nature of sudden death, where one moment you are at a wedding celebration and the next you are planning a funeral. The play was a tribute to her husband, but it was also a survival guide, an honest portrayal of the strength required to piece a shattered life back together for the sake of her children. David Graf's commitment to his family was paramount, but he also harbored a deep sense of responsibility to his professional community. This was exemplified by his dedicated work with the Screen Actors Guild, SAG. He wasn't just a dues-paying member. He was an active and passionate advocate for his fellow actors. Graf served as a Hollywood Union representative, sat on SAG's national board, and was a member of the TV Theatrical Steering Committee and the National Disciplinary Review Committee. He poured his time and energy into fighting for fair treatment and better working conditions for actors. This work, performed away from the glare of the camera, was a profound reflection of his character. It demonstrated a man who cared deeply about fairness and the well-being of his colleagues, a man who used his position to lift others up. His efforts at SAG were a quiet but powerful part of his legacy, showcasing a commitment to service and community that went far beyond his on-screen roles. The funeral service for David Graf was a testament to the man he was. Held in his hometown of Lancaster, Ohio, it was attended by a multitude of his police academy castmates and friends from the industry who flew in to pay their respects. They came to mourn the loss of a dear friend and to support his grieving family. He was laid to rest in the Forest Rose Cemetery, a final peaceful resting place in the town that had shaped his early years. The death of David Graf was a profound tragedy on multiple levels. It was the personal tragedy of a wife losing her husband and two sons losing their father. It was the professional tragedy of Hollywood losing a talented and respected actor in the prime of his career. And it was the human tragedy of a good and decent man, known for his warmth and gentle spirit, being taken from the world far too soon. The suddenness of his departure left an indelible mark, a permanent sense of a story unfinished, of a life cut short in mid-sentence. In the years since his passing, the memory of David Graf has been kept alive by his family, his friends, and through the enduring popularity of his work. His portrayal of Tackleberry remains a beloved comedic performance, a character whose over-the-top enthusiasm for firepower was made charming and hilarious by the gentle soul of the actor playing him. Yet, for those who knew the man behind the uniform, the true loss was of his kindness, his humor, and his unwavering decency. His death at a wedding, a place of life-affirming vows, remains a poignant and painful reminder of life's fragility. It was an unscripted final curtain that fell far too early, leaving behind a legacy of laughter, friendship, and the aching silence of a presence gone too soon. His life is not a tragedy, but a testament to a life lived with integrity and love. He created a character that will be remembered and laughed with for generations to come. He was a good actor, but by all accounts, he was an even better man. He left the world far too soon, but the joy he created remains. And in the end, leaving behind a legacy of laughter is one of the most wonderful legacies of all. The next time you watch Police Academy and see that wide-eyed cadet with a love for his .44 Magnum, take a moment to remember the thoughtful, talented, and kind-hearted man from Ohio who brought him to life.